may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
All right, guys, in this video, I'm not going to be talking about the extremely obvious winners that you had from the NFL draft. I mean, I think that has been discussed enough. You don't need to hear any more about Mike Davis. You don't need to hear any more about Myles Gaskin. These guys that they are going to have their ADPs skyrocketing after the NFL draft. Instead, I would like to focus in on some players that I think probably aren't going to get enough coverage. And in my opinion, obviously, they're not as big of winners as Mike Davis or Myles Gaskin. But I think that they need to be discussed almost just as much because their 2021 outlooks just drastically improved. Now, before we get into these players, I need to address something. We had a question in the last live stream by Evan, and I really want to give you a massive thank you here, Evan. Just pretty much saying that you love the channel. You want to do everything that you can to make sure it succeeds. And you're asking what that could be. And to be honest, I just want you to continue to do the same thing that y'all always do. Now, if you look at how the videos perform on this channel, I mean, per view, our videos get more likes than pretty much any other fantasy football YouTube video that you could ever find. I don't know why, but this audience always destroys that like button. Also, y'all are always coming out to the premieres. You're subscribed to the channel. You have that bell hit next to the subscribe button. And most importantly, probably, I mean, the amount of subscribers that we have and the amount of those subscribers that are signed up to support the show on Patreon means a ton, because with that Patreon support, it allows me to pretty much dedicate every single second of my day to going in, doing the research for these videos, talking fantasy football with y'all on Patreon, as well as getting an upgrade for the channel like this microphone that we got, or hopefully an entirely new studio sometime soon. So yeah, I just want to give y'all a big thank you, and the easy answer to that is just continue to do everything that y'all have been doing, because y'all have been absolutely killing it. But anyway, let's get into this video. Let's bring up Lamar Jackson as our first under the radar winner. Now, we know with Lamar Jackson, I mean, it's been ugly with the wide receiver options that he has had over the past few years. Now, I know the passing volume is really never going to be there with Baltimore. I mean, that's not something that you could expect. And to be honest, I know a lot of people want to give the Baltimore coaching staff a ton of crap for not having the passing volume be as high as they would like to see it for fantasy. But I think it's smart. I mean, if you look at Lamar Jackson, you're never going to win the game by having Lamar Jackson just drop back and throw 40 balls a game. No, that's not how you can play efficient football with Lamar. The best thing you can do with Lamar is making sure that he is limiting mistakes, making sure that you're not asking him to do too much with his arm. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's still 2021. The NFL is trending towards being a pass-happy league more and more every season. So you need those wide receivers that can generate separation, especially if you're a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, who is not necessarily known for his deep ball accuracy. So they go out, and in the first round, they go and they draft Rashad Bateman. In the fourth round, they followed it up with a wide receiver that was probably a great value in that range with Tylan Wallace. So you love those additions through the NFL draft. And this is following them going and giving Sammy Watkins $8 million to come to Baltimore. And now with Sammy Watkins, of course, that's not a wide receiver that you can get excited about for fantasy purposes. But we saw a major difference when Sammy Watkins was on and off the field for the Kansas City Chiefs over the past few years. And that's just because the deep threat that Sammy Watkins is. I mean, the opposing defensive backs, they have to pay him respect even if he is not getting the volume. So for all of these additions, even if Lamar Jackson's not someone that you're going to be able to project to have an insane amount of passing volume, I mean, you still have to see the arrow trending up for Lamar Jackson currently. Okay, so now let's get to a massive under-the-radar winner, but I know a lot of people aren't even going to think of this player. I just think that, I mean, it's obvious in my opinion. Hunter Henry is going to be a massive winner from the NFL draft. And now y'all know that I do like Cam Newton. I mean, for fantasy purposes, especially when Cam is starting, Cam does have upside, because you look at him and you go, okay, this is a quarterback that has rushing upside. We know when he gets to the goal line that you're going to see a lot of QB power. You know that Cam Newton is going to be getting a ton of rushing touchdowns compared to the average quarterback, compared to just say someone like Mac Jones coming in. But what you don't want is you don't want a rushing quarterback that's going to be stealing touchdowns at the goal line if you are a tight end. Now, if you're Hunter Henry, I mean, imagine how demoralizing it is just to go in there when it is 2nd and goal, and instead of going through and just running a crossing route line along the goal line to get a stationary quarterback to dump the ball off and give you a very easy touchdown, instead you have Cam Newton just running it in. Now, for fantasy, that's horrible for Hunter Henry, but now you have that stationary quarterback in Mac Jones coming in. And I can't say for certain, but I think that we can try to project Mac Jones to be a little bit of a better passing quarterback at this point than what you have with Cam Newton, when Cam Newton has suffered all those injuries, when we saw very poor levels of efficiency from Cam in 2020. So like I said, guys, y'all know I am a Cam Newton fanboy, to be completely honest. But you have to be realistic. You have to look at how Cam Newton scores. You have to look at how Cam Newton actually operates in an NFL offense, and understand that having a stationary quarterback in there, especially for a tight end that you want to be coming away with those receiving touchdowns, is going to be a lot better. So Hunter Henry has to be a big-time winner. Okay, so now let's go over to one of my guys. Let's go and let's talk about Odell Beckham Jr. Now, with Odell, I'm going to be honest, I was a little bit worried. I mean, if you look at not only the recent injuries that he has suffered, but more importantly, his contract situation, combined with the fact that the Cleveland Browns really had a ton of incentives to go and address the wide receiver position in this year's NFL draft. Now, I thought that this was something that was going to happen. I thought that you were going to see them maybe not spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver, but at the very least go out there on day 2 and try to get their future replacement for someone like either Odell Beckham Jr. or Jarvis Landry. I mean, a guy like Terrace Marshall would have been perfect in this situation, just bringing a third LSU wide receiver into that Cleveland offense. Because if you look at the actual contract situations for both Odell and Jarvis Landry, I mean, they are owed a ton of money over the next few years, yet the dead money is close to zero. I mean, it looks like if neither wide receiver steps up their game going forward, those guys could have been cut candidates. And also, this looks like a situation where you would want to bring in another wide receiver. You would want to bring in one of those high-profile rookies. That way you just have a little bit of leverage down the line, and you're not locked in to paying an Odell Beckham Jr. or Jarvis Landry a top 10 salary at the wide receiver position at the NFL level. Now, they don't decide to do that. Instead, they address a defensive side of the ball questions. So I think with Odell, you have to call him a winner here just simply because he avoided all competition coming in. And it looks like he is going to be a wide receiver 1 in 2021 for his NFL offense. Okay, so now let's get a player up here that I was hating on before the draft. And I have to come out and just say, I wasn't completely wrong, but still, I was wrong nonetheless. Gabriel Davis. Okay, so with Gabriel Davis, Buffalo's another team that I honestly thought that they had a decent shot of going wide receiver. I mean, you looked at what this team wants to do. They want to just have Josh Allen drop back 40 times a game and completely air it out. I thought that if they brought in another wide receiver that was going to be competent alongside Stephon Diggs, that this offense had a ton of potential. I mean, we knew that they weren't going to be going with the running back like a lot of people expected, even though I hate Devin Singletary, even though I hate Zach Moss, and I did coming into the NFL. I mean, if you look at the recent team investment with third-round draft picks in back-to-back years at the running back position, I mean, it would have been kind of a luxury pick and a very bad one if they decided to go with the Javonte Williams at the end of the first round. So I did not think that they were going to go running back, but I was a little bit worried that they were going to go wide receiver. And I know people are screaming in the live chat in the premiere right now going, Mason, but Emmanuel Sanders is there. Emmanuel Sanders is there. They brought in Emmanuel Sanders. Guys, Emmanuel Sanders is 34 years old. He hasn't been good in how many years? Like, Emmanuel Sanders is nothing. It looks like Gabriel Davis is going to be the locked-in wide receiver 2 on a team that has one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL that is going to be throwing it very often. So, yes, I was on record saying I wanted to sell. I wanted to avoid Gabriel Davis. But it looks like I may just be having to hold an L. Now, when we are holding L's, let's go back-to-back. Let's just take our other one on right now, and let's call DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault under the radar winners for the 2021 NFL Draft. Now, y'all know I was saying, hey, we are worried about James Robinson. We are worried about DJ Chark. We are worried about Laviska Shenault. This new coaching staff coming in has no allegiance to any of these former players, despite how they produced. So I was worried that they were going to go and draft Trevor Lawrence at the 101. And because they had so much draft capital, I mean, they had that extra first round pick, they had multiple second round picks. I was afraid that they were going to go draft someone like Elijah Moore. I thought that they could have brought someone in that was going to compete for targets, very similar to what you saw with the Cincinnati Bengals do last offseason with drafting Joe Burrow with the first round pick and then following it up directly, getting his franchise wide receiver of the future with T. Higgins with the first pick in the second round. Now, if you looked at all the picks that the Jags had, I was worried they were going to go running back. I was worried that they were going to go wide receiver. For those reasons, I was saying, hey, I want y'all to be kind of avoiding James Robinson, DJ Chark, and Laviska Shenault. So we got it right with James Robinson, but in the case of DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault, we just completely dropped it. And it looks like they are going to be the locked-in wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 for Trevor Lawrence. And I know in that same Premier chat, a lot of people are coming out going, but Mason, they brought in Marvin Jones. Mason, they brought in Marvin Jones. Thank God they brought in Marvin Jones. It looks like Marvin Jones, what saved DJ Chark and Laviska Shenault from having an actually good wide receiver come in through the NFL draft. You do not need to be worried about Marvin Jones. I mean, he is not going to be taking much at all from either DJ or Laviska. Okay, so now let's get up a wide receiver that I know y'all are tired of hearing me talk about, especially if you've been watching the Dynasty channel this offseason. But Nicole Hardman dodges NFL free agency. Sammy Watkins is gone. He goes and signs with Baltimore. Now he steps up to that wide receiver 2 role on the Kansas City Chiefs. And like we've said so many times before, with Nicole Hardman coming into the 2019 NFL draft, I didn't love him. Even after the Kansas City Chiefs drafted him, I was avoiding Nicole Hardman in rookie drafts. I was going, you know what? This is a wide receiver that's raw. Yes, he has elite athleticism, but I don't think he is really going to be doing much in Kansas City right away. And yeah, I mean, Nicole Hardman didn't do much in Kansas City right away because he was just a raw athlete with elite level speed. But now I think that we can say he's going into year 3. That's the traditional year these wide receivers are supposed to break out. And hopefully we see an upgrade in the route running capability of Nicole Hardman. Hopefully he just improves on his overall game. And if that's the case, I think that Nicole Hardman has the upside to be a top 24 wide receiver in fantasy this year. I mean, he is going to be getting the snaps. He's going to be playing in one of the most efficient offenses in the entire NFL. So yeah, Nicole has to be a big time riser from the NFL draft. Okay, so now let's go over to a pair of teammates. We called them winners after NFL free agency by dodging a couple bullets there, and they dodged some more bullets with the NFL draft with Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards. Now, with Henry Ruggs, I was too high on him in 2020. We will be the first person to admit that. Now, with Bryan Edwards, I didn't like him, but now I'm looking at both of these wide receivers going, hey, there might be something here. I mean, clearly the Raiders liked them with the team investment that they made into them, and both wide receivers dealt with injuries their rookie seasons. And Las Vegas is a team that definitely had the capability to bring in another wide receiver. I mean, they could have gone and they could have pursued a Juju Smith-Schuster. They could have pursued a Kenny Golladay. They could have made a push for Will Fuller in free agency. Yet they decide not to do any of those. And in the NFL draft, when they do have the draft capital to go out there and draft a wide receiver fairly high, they decide to pass. And it shows us that they have faith in Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards. Now, to figure out if either one of these wide receivers has the talent to be successful at the next level, we can't say for sure. But in the case of Henry Ruggs, I mean, he has the speed where he's going to be on the field every single down that he's healthy regardless, just because he can stretch it for other players like Darren Waller underneath. So yeah, Henry Ruggs and Bryan Edwards, they have to be called winners. Just like Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell, going to be our last players that we are talking about here. And with Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell, I know that you do have T.Y. Hilton coming back through free agency. T.Y. Hilton was a wide receiver that we wanted to see leave. We wanted them to finally unlock Paris Campbell, and we saw a fantastic start to the 2020 season from him. Now, a lot of people don't remember this because he got cut short with the knee injury, and it's going to be almost impossible to go and look at the extremely small sample that you had from Paris Campbell in 2020 and expect that same type of per-game production in 2021. But nonetheless, he flashed that he had talent. Michael Pittman, as well, is a wide receiver going into year 2, and he was drafted ahead of some great players in the second round of that 2020 NFL draft. So both Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell are wide receivers that look like they're going to be close to every down players. It's going to be pretty much up to Carson Wentz. If Carson Wentz is great, I think that you could expect a decent amount of fantasy production from Paris Campbell and Michael Pittman. If Carson Wentz looks like he did in 2020, well, nobody on this offense is going to have value. Now, thank you guys. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I really hope y'all got something from it. Of course, go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. It helps us out a ton, and I will see y'all with the video tomorrow. I want to give a big thank you for everyone supporting the show in Benjamin, Bill, Jason, Matthew, Hutton, Sean, Freddie's Berto, Andy, Frederick, and Chris.